Hello there, Beck Benedict here. We're playing Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2, and this is my Angel of Death difficulty guide and walkthrough. We're currently on Operation 5 of 6. It is entitled Dawn's Descent. So I don't know why this is in the game, but it's quite striking and beautiful, and it reminds me of course, from the Dead Space sequences and Dead Space 2 particularly. You can get hit here, so I'm not sure how many hits you can sustain on Angel of Death. I got hit once at the end, but I I have done this where I've got hit multiple times, so it's not anything that you really need to worry about. Now we are going to be starting off with the Judgment Hammer, and I really enjoy the acquisition of this weapon, and also this first journey of this chapter is quite fun. It really is because you're going to be doing a lot of using of the jump pack. So what's going to happen here is you're going to have the smaller warrior type enemies in groups, and you're going to have the Rubik what are they called? Marines. I'm sorry. I'm not sure if they're called rubric or Rubik Marines. Let's just call them Marines, because you're gonna have them, potentially shooting at you, chipping away at your armor and then at your health. So, best thing to do really is to let your teammates deal with the smaller enemies while you use the jump pack to ascend and then do the ground slam in the Marines' vicinity, because that's going to do area damage to them. It's going to put you right next to them so that you can hit them with your good old fashioned barbarian hammer of from God of War. That's why I kind of like the weapon, because it's just a silly and goofy thing that they put late in the game, and it just so reminds me of the barbarian hammer. It's not the most effective weapon, but I find it to be the most enjoyable to use. Of course, mostly for nostalgia. But this weapon doesn't have that many moves either. The only moves I'm going to be mentioning what inputs I have. Remember, I switched R1, or rather, I remapped R1, which is the main combat, the melee button by default. I put that on X. So with this weapon, you can do X and then hold X. You can start holding X from the outset, and he does a charge, which takes a very long time. You can also do an X hold off of an evasion or off of a sprint, and the weapon also just has a light and a light attack. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not anything about light attacks, but just pressing X and X without needing to hold anything. But there's going to be some new enemies on this stage as well. Some of these enemies are a tad obnoxious because you have these Terminator enemies they're called Terminator enemies, and they look like the Marines. They're essentially Marines, but the thing is with them is they've got two types of them. One is a type that uses like a grenade launcher type of weapon at you, and the other one is a very quick enemy that attacks you in a melee sort of fashion, and he's quite difficult too. They're both difficult. And then of course you've got I don't think we've seen them. Have we seen the ones with the Bale Flamer? Because you're gonna get a heavy dose of that enemy in this chapter. So you've also got Marines with warp fire bolters and with the Bale Flamer. I personally find the fire iterations of the Marines quite difficult, because they do have like a vortex move that they can do where they can summon an AOE underneath you, and if you don't get out in time, it deals you heavy damage. So that's one of the problems with that, and not to mention their flamethrower is extremely deadly on this difficulty, and it's hard to close in distance on them too sometimes. But we are going to be dealing with, in some situations, Marines with sorcerers. According to just looking online and things and looking into the bestiaries, there's two types of sorcerers. One is in fact, we have one over here, I believe. Yes, this one here. There's a lesser sorcerer, and then there's an exalted sorcerer. You notice that eye right there in the middle of what looks like a shield? That can be shot at, and you definitely need to get out of the way. When he's telegraphing that he's going to do that the laser beam type of attack, you can dodge out of the way of it if you're quick enough to recognize when he's telegraphing it. But in regard to that eye, you want to shoot that out because the problem about the sorcerers is that they're kind of like the Neurothropes. They aid other enemies. Do you remember how the Zoanthrope would kind of buff other enemies when when he was around? That is not something that the sorcerers do. They don't buff enemies, but they do reanimate these armor enemies. These ones, the Marines. So as long as you have sorcerers and Marines around, you want to prioritize the former because of the possibility of them resurrecting killed Marines. So it's going to be a perpetual, a never-ending sort of situation. You've got to clear out those sorcerers. And I think the difference between the lessers and the exalteds is, I believe, this is just what I've read, it's possibly just the fact that the exalted ones are the ones that resurrect and the lessers don't have that ability. I could be wrong about that. God knows I've been wrong about certain other things on this walkthrough, but the possibility of it sounds logical enough to me. I think we're coming up, if I remember correctly. It's a sequence similar to the one that we did at the beginning, where we were dealing with Marines and the helmeted warriors, and it's a sequence where you just do the combat until you get a cutscene, basically. You can also fall off on these platforms. If you fall off, I think they take a little bit of health off and then put you somewhere close by, sort of like in Lords of Shadow. At least the first Lords of Shadow that I'm thinking about. But I think it would have been really terrific, maybe even in the third game, if you can just have a lot more of this with the jump pack, because it's these chapters, they do stand out quite a bit for being extremely fun, and I think they're a little limited though about how you how you actually just use them to maneuver yourself. It works perfectly well. I just think it could have been finessed a little bit. Here's the checkpoint right here, and then I think we're gonna have a couple of enemies that have the cannons, possibly. Those are the ones that I really don't like, because some of these Marines slash Terminators, they'll fire at you from range, and they fire a salvo of missiles at you, and it could be these guys. Yep, it is these guys. Here they are. I don't like them at all for that. It's it's a salvo that you can dodge without getting damaged, but it's gonna require some practice of it and some skill. But we've got okay. So this is what I was talking about. This is the sequence where you just fight until you get a cutscene. And I have usually when I go through these fights, if I do take a critical, or I think a mortal wound, as the game calls it, I reset, because I do try to, and if you've watched the walkthrough, it can speak for itself. There's only been a few instances where I've gotten down and needed to be revived by my teammates, and that was just to add a little bit more of a challenge to what I'm doing. Here's the charge. there's your UT right there. According to the description of that, like every like second and a half, it gains a little bit more strength. But that is a really fun mechanic, doing that ground pound. So yes, I've tried to not get downed, but I thought I'd be getting downed a lot more coming into this difficulty when I started the walkthrough. But the difficulty is quite manageable. I would even say, on a scale of, well, I don't want to say any numerical scale or anything, but like does it veer more towards being difficult or not difficult? Hard or easy? It definitely, I think, veers more towards being not hard. There's the checkpoint, by the way. And there is a sorcerer over here. This one here, you don't have to interact with him. It's just some scripting that plays out. I'm not going to say anything about the actual story behind it, because if you haven't played the game, then I don't want to ruin it for you. But now we've got. I'm probably going to call these guys flamers for brevity's sake, but they can really punish you with their flamethrowers. But what I was going to say, and also these cultists here, you can just, like I said earlier in the walkthrough, you can just roll into them and they'll die. Well, you might say if the game is veering towards being not difficult, why cover it? It's quite a fair question. A game doesn't have to be brutally difficult to be covered on this channel. Sometimes, some games are just they're extremely difficult. Some games are just difficult. Some are kind of not difficult, but even on the hardest difficulty, it speaks for itself. and it's an accomplishment, and that's what the channel is founded on, beating a game on the hardest difficulty. Now, if that happens to be something you enjoy, that's great, because then you probably enjoy the channel. But I don't like go out of my way to cherry pick titles that veer towards being not difficult, because let's face it, I don't really play that many games at all. Like when I saw this game and I started to play it, it kind of reinvigorated me into gaming, because I do have a full-time occupation, and my free time is quite valuable to me. So I've actually my free time I've chosen to spend it watching classic films from the 40s and 50s, particularly film noir crime pictures that I've mentioned before, and not just those movies, but films like that. And I've got a wide selection and a big collection of Blu-rays, but I've given myself over more to watching and enjoying quality films rather than playing games, and it was getting to the point where I didn't want to play any games at all, because I was so enjoying watching films. So that's why there hasn't been much of uploading on the channel and things like that. Plus, it's very laborious and tedious to make videos. I'm not saying I'm going to stop or anything like that, but it's very time consuming to make the videos, because there's so many stages of it. There's the playing of it, there's the editing of it, there's the commentary of it. So you can imagine that, plus having full-time occupation, and then valuing one's free time. And so, I kind of, I don't know, I kind of grew out of video games, but I still like them. I still like to play quality games, and that's why a game like this is so special to me, because man, a game like this, it's a total cliche to say this, but they don't make these type of games anymore. Very seldom does something like this come out. So I hope that it did well when it came out, because I wasn't following its success or its failures or anything like that. Okay, so if memory serves, we do have a pretty difficult part. We've got some more flamers up here. But the whole idea of that sentiment that I was mentioning is that that's an attack that they can do as well, where they envelop the ground with an AOE, and you need to quickly roll out of the vicinity of that, because that will heavily damage you, as you can well imagine. But to put a recap on it, it's an accomplishment for me and for anybody, for you, who's listening to the video, to complete a game on the hardest difficulty, because it isn't an easy thing to do. Sometimes it's easier than other times, but there's a reason why it's a hard difficulty. So I just, that's the standard that I've always adhered to on the channel. The game must be played on the highest difficulty, and it's for me, it's the most satisfying way to play a game. It can also be one of the more frustrating ways to play a game. But there you have it. And and now we have a difficult fight over here. So I actually pick up a melta bomb on one of these takes, and I chose to put it in a location where there's a bunch of Marines that spawn that are some of the more difficult ones. Now I come up here right away at first, and there's going to be this first spawn. There is an incendiary canister that you can shoot, but if there's not many people around, then what's the point of shooting at it in the first place? So if you do shoot it the moment those enemies spawn, you will get a collection of good kills. And it is nice though that on this title you can memorize the spawns because they always happen at the same times and at the same locations. So here's the location of one of the spawns over here. I'm just trying to, I could have put that on another spawn site, but that one over there was just kind of practical to get to because all the enemies are over here at this point. And there's that spawn. So, with these grenades, I've got to say that the crack grenade is the best grenade. It truly is. I've just been so underwhelmed by the melta bomb. It's underwhelming, and it's well, I've overstated that. Oh, there also is a sorcerer that comes over here as well, and you've got to be particularly careful of their beam attack. Now, remember, sorcerers need to be your priority when there's other enemies, because as I mentioned before, they will resurrect the Marines that have been killed. They'll reanimate their armor, and it will be a tedious process to complete it that way. They're not so high up that you can't hit them, though. They're a levitating enemy that hovers off the ground, slightly off the ground, and you can go up to them and hit them if you want to. But I think it is best to destroy their shield and then finish them off with strong weapons. You fucker. Oh man. I was running up to that executable enemy and my teammate grabbed him before I could. That's kind of, that I remember that happening when I was playing. Motherfucker, he took it away from me. Alright, so we're looking pretty good. We've got health packs, and looks like we do have a guardian relic to our name. No frag grenades. For some reason in here, this must be a mid-level loading zone or something, because it's a very lengthy wait over here. Part of it was I didn't see the interact sign at first, but there still is a good deal of waiting over here. So I've trimmed all the waiting and the cutscene and pared it down nicely for you right there. And then let's see what we can pick up over here. I love these areas too. They're really fantastic. I think there's some crack grenades over here. So if you want a different weapon besides the thunder hammer, go for it. Okay. Let's see what this is. Oh, this is a sequence where there's some of the warriors. I'm just calling these guys warriors. I know they have some technical, and I know for a fact actually, but there's a technical strange name to it. But you notice they do have shields, and with heavy weapons, that's not a problem. But you know, if you are having issues with their shields, and you're carrying a light weapon, like, I mean, if you've got the fucking combat knife or something, you know, you're gonna have a problem. But you know, there's plenty of opportunities to pick up stuff. There's things all over the place. But just, you know, be aware that even though these enemies do trudge along slowly, they do have a teleport that can come out of nowhere pretty much. Okay, the crack grenade. Looks like we already have crack grenades. I know that there's a hard fight coming up too, but this next one is not easy either. So I'm gonna run up this hill over here, and there's gonna be a spawn right over here. There's gonna be a spawn up here in just a second as well. There's a canister right here that we can shoot, but if you don't shoot it right away, you're not gonna hit much. But you've got a collection of those flamers down here, and I'm choosing to use the crack grenade, knowing that I can revisit the area that I just left and pick up the other crack grenades after I throw the two that I have on hand. How do you feel about only being able to carry 2 crack grenades? You know, it's kind of that Gears of War situation where they only let you carry 2 incendiary grenades instead of the 4 regular frag grenades that you can carry. And that is a sign, you know, that does tell you something, you know, that weapon is you know, has something good going for it, that they're limiting how many you can carry. So I chose to use my Righteous Fury over here to give myself some health. I'm going to reacquire some crack grenades. And oh, did you see it a second ago? I was so startled by one of my teammates rejoining me that I think I might have took a swing at him, or something happened over there, because I thought he was a Marine. I thought the fight was still going on, but of course it had finished. Okay, in very short order, folks, we are going to be coming on a section that is quite challenging, and it involves several of the heavier enemies, and you're going to be dealing with the melee iterations of these guys and the rocket launcher versions of them, and you're going to be in a circular room. And over here, feel free to use the charger, the charging weapon, but you might want to switch back to the plasma incinerator. I would recommend the plasma incinerator for the upcoming difficult fight. On this section, I discovered that if you come over here to the left, you get rushed less. So what's going to be happening is that we are going to be doing this extremely challenging fight coming up, and what it basically amounts to is you're waiting for a lift to arrive, and while you're waiting for it, you're going to be attacked by all manner of heavies. And there are certain spawn points that I'm going to be pointing out, and hopefully you can try what I do to get the upper hand on these spawns, to possibly do some spawn control, or maybe even better, some spawn kills. But you'll definitely always want to keep on hand the crack grenades, because they're just completely indispensable. They are the best sub-weapon as far as a projectile that you can get your hands on. Now with the melee with the melee heavies, you're going to really have to sacrifice maybe one of your sessions and just fight them a couple times and get the feeling with those guys, because they do multiple attacks, and it's not just one perfect parry that you have to succeed at to execute them. You'll have to do several perfect parries to put them into execution status. So they're very aggressive. They aren't particularly fast when they swing, but you do need to acquire the timing like anything else. Okay? So it's a room that you're not going to see me fall in combat on, but you will see me heal a couple times and probably use my Righteous Fury. And then we'll just take it from there. It is coming up presently. I think we have crack grenades. Yeah, definitely pick those up. And then this chapter is going to conclude with the Hellbrute boss fight. And then that will usher us into Operation 6. And I don't know if that coincides exactly with the operation number, but that's just how I'm going to do things and make my my guide have its particular numbering system so that people can follow it. What will not happen though is that there will not be a video exclusively dedicated to the final boss. So seeing how this is Operation 5, correct? So in Operation 6, what's going to happen is the final boss will be at the end of that video, but there will be some fights leading up to that fight, including another Hellbrute fight. Okay, so I'm backing up over here because I think I know I've got some more ammo back here that I could potentially... I think I've got... What do I have? The grenade launcher? We'll switch that out, though, because like I've said, you definitely want the plasma incinerator heavy weapon that I just picked up right there. Okay. And this goes by the numbers. Not this that we're in currently, but once you get into this room that I mentioned is very challenging, it does go by the numbers. And we've got a lesser sorcerer over here, so we'll have to contend with him. But I've mentioned how to contend with him previously. So once we get into this room, you're going to be pulling a switch. However, before you pull the switch, take a look around the room and note all of the locations of frag grenades, crack grenades, heal kits, things like that, so that you can get ready on a moment's notice under any sort of duress of combat to go get those things in the heat of the moment. Ideally, you would want to pick up such like frag grenades prior to activating the switch that kicks off that battle. What's in here? Medicare. Okay, get that. I don't know what it is. Medic K something. Something odd. Yeah, don't pick up the grenade launcher. You don't need it. You just need the plasma incinerator. As I said, it is indispensable. Okay, so I spent a couple of good hours on this part trying to ascertain key spawn points that would facilitate quick kills for these enemies. And if not outright kills, then facilitate me getting enemies quickly into execution status and possibly being able to get multiple enemies into execution status and then chaining those executions one right after the next. Okay, so here's the room that I mentioned. This is the difficult room. I think I'm going to go right up to it and we're going to start interacting with it right away. Okay, so the first spawn happens right over here where I'm going to aim, right here. So I'm going to try to shoot this and damage these guys. I don't know what it did. Hopefully it did something. Second spawn right over there. And there's an exploding canister back there, which I believe we hit. And it put both these guys into execution status, and we can chain kill these guys with executions. Although I decided not to do an execution on the second guy because my shields were already full. Okay, so now at this point, you need to be liberal with tossing crack grenades on these heavy enemies. The flamethrower guys have a lot of reach, so be real careful. Be real careful. And you need to be aware of anybody that's sniping you as well. Don't worry about using the crack grenades. Well, let me say this. Don't worry about using at least 2 crack grenades, because there's another pickup of 2 crack grenades coming up. And quite honestly, if you wanted to use the 2 crack grenades that you came in here with, and then use 2 more crack grenades, that I'll show you where a pickup is for those, you can use 4 crack grenades on 4 heavies and get a real advantage on this part, because after this there'll be even more crack grenades to replenish what you've wasted on this part over here. So do not worry. Crack grenades are your absolute best friend. I think there's some frags over here. Yeah, frag grenades are good for clearing up bunches of enemies that are stuck together. So now we're going to circle around the room, try to get a beat on these enemies over here, flank them if we possibly can. We are getting shot up, but that's just par for the course. Sometimes you've got to charge, you've got to execute. You know, it's just how the game works. And then we've got a Terminator up here, it looks like. So we've got to put this son of a bitch down over here, if we can. I'm not sure if that's a Terminator. Terminator might be gone. But now we need to circle around the room in a safe manner, because some of these enemies do teleport, so we need to be careful about that. But we may have succeeded in clearing the room. But if we haven't, if there's anybody left, and even if there isn't anybody left, I'm going to go around the room and pick up some stuff. Oh, okay, see what happened over here? The lift that we were waiting for came all the way to the top, and it had heavies on it. These ones, the melee ones, and the chain gun ones. So this one right here is a melee heavy. So you need to be familiar with how to deal with that by practicing it. I was caught with my pants down pretty much because I didn't realize that lift had already gone up. Here's a melee. See how we're working this guy? We had to parry him twice to get the gun strike, and that ushered us into execution, and we executed him. But I was in a little bit of a bind having my pants down, so to speak, because I don't think I had any crack grenades, and I had wanted to get to the crack grenades that I knew were around here somewhere so that I could throw those on the 3 enemies that come up on the lift. So it is a rather dynamic sequence. Anything can happen at any given moment. This is all going to be put in fast forward because we have a long elevator ride down here to the bowels of, I don't know, bowels of hell, I presume. But once we do get down here, you will be given access to more crack grenades, and we will have several more fights until we get to the Hellbrute. Now, the Hellbrute itself is not too bad. It is too bad that he has lackeys. The only good thing about the lackeys is that they only show up at the beginning of the fight, and sometimes the spawn points that they spawn from, they have incendiary barrels next to them, such as down here, because there's going to be a spawn point down here that has a heavy down here next to him, and as you can see, there's a red barrel over here. I could take advantage of that because I know there's going to be another spawn point down here. There's also illusions down here that look like they're going to hit you, but they don't. They're your team members, but they don't hit you. Okay, so looks like we damaged some of the lesser enemies, but this guy still needs to be executed over here. He might have got damaged from that exploding barrel. So what happens is you get a spawn point down here, and then you've also got a spawn point on top of one of the scaffoldings up there. But those enemies, to my knowledge, are illusions, and they cannot hurt you. You're going to see illusions from time to time on these sections. Sometimes they're innocuous, sometimes they actually are dangerous, and they can actually hit you. So the ones that can hit you, I noticed that those ones were in an engagement with a sorcerer that's coming up a little bit later in the video. And it was a lesser sorcerer, I happen to remember. So reconnoiter the environment, pick up everything you want, restock on all of your ammunition, get your stuff going over here. And we have, I think we have like 2 fights, maybe 3, separated by very nice checkpoints with some fairly easy enemies. We're talking about cultists and things like that you can pretty much just run into and kill. And there will be some warriors with those spiked helmets and things like that. Those can't be run over. But the hammer, you don't even need to break their guard with the hammer because it's so strong. But as we come up here, you will see enemies. Well, you won't be able to see it now, but we'll be attacked by enemies coming up in short order, I believe, over here. Yeah, so we've got some warriors. Always mind those blue perfect parry opportunity windows that you see there, those blue flashes. Because on the Hellbrute, you basically want to use the lackeys in the best way possible by attacking them and then kind of holding off and baiting them to do their blue flash. And once you get the perfect parry, which isn't hard to get, that will restore one of your shields. And it might look different on the hammer because one of the animations for the hammer perfect parry is that he just kicks the enemy away. He doesn't actually hit the enemy with the hammer. So don't worry if you see him kick the enemy away, you're still getting your shield regenerated properly from a perfect parry success. Okay, now pick up the cracks, and then I did notice that there was a plasma incinerator back there, but I think there's another one coming up over here, so we should be okay. And then we've got one of these obligatory cutscenes that are not a cutscene, but these are always checkpoints down here. And I believe what this is, this happens to be that aforementioned section where we possibly have a sorcerer. I'm not sure if this is the one with the sorcerer. Yeah, this is the one. I think it is. We'll see. We'll see in short order. There's no rush. Take your time. Be calm and take your time. I'm going to throw a crack on him. Yeah, this looks like just a bunch of heavies, but we will be coming up in very short order to the fight with some illusions that are actually not innocuous, but rather they are deadly and they can hit you. So you need to be careful about that. And of course, you'll need to prioritize the lesser sorcerer, because if you don't, he can potentially heal downed heavies. He can reassemble them and put them back in the game, and you don't want that. Okay, let's proceed up here because I do believe that this next fight is what I was talking about. But before you get too far, check around, see what's what over here. I won't take up too much of your time, I promise. We're going to follow the waypoint over here. At one point there is, well, I'll mention it when we get to it, but there are some, what's that? Yeah, definitely pick that up right there. Pick that up. Okay, come on, Bick. Start running. And what do we have up here? Okay, we've got some more cultists. Oh, I remember this. You got a checkpoint right here. There's some exploding barriers, barrels in this location you can avail yourself of. So if you clear this and then you die in the next part, there is a wave with a sorcerer and some heavies, but that's not the part that I was talking about, because there is one later where you have those illusions coming. This is not that. This is just heavies and a sorcerer. So these guys are going to teleport over to you. So you need to be careful about that. Watch out for the flame. Be very careful of the flame. And put these guys down as promptly as you can. See how he teleported? I need to get out of the way of his AoE. It was a little bit too late there. Back off as much as you can. Execute. Looks like we can chain execute. Perfect. Get both of our shields back. 2 for the price of 1. And then we can finish off these last ones. This looks like a melee Marine. Okay. Now we're going to move forward. We've got a little bit more sprinting to do. It looks like on that encounter there were no sorcerers, so I do apologize about that. I should say no sorcerer because there's always ever one sorcerer in encounters, but over here you've just got, you know, the standard shit bags that you can really decimate with the hammer and whatever tool else you want to use. And yes, this is the part that there is a sorcerer and then there are these heavies over here, so you really need to be careful about this. And heavies and sorcerer heavies, so err on the side of caution and shoot everybody. You know, because some of the sorcerers might not hit you, but some of them very well might hit you. So you want to come over here and flank this sorcerer right over here. By that time, you should have cleared the enemies back into your left so you won't get snuck up on. But you will have more enemies to fend off ahead of you over here. But just make sure that you're aiming at the... see how these guys do that? They'll teleport over to you. But they give you an opportunity to perfect parry them, so that's what you want to do. You want to perfect parry them, execute, and proceed to shoot any of these stagnant projectiles that they have spouted out. And then what we want to do is carefully take care of this sorcerer. You can go up to him and punch him if you want to. I think that's what I'm going to do, but I think he was already in execution status. But yeah, he's a goner. And that was a pretty clean fight. And then this guy needs to be executed. Might as well. I'm not full up with my shield, so now we are. Okay, and then I think from this point forward, you will, as you descend, you'll see some incapacitated Marines down here. If you're wondering what this is all about, these enemies are just completely incapacitated. You can run right past them. You don't have to interact with them. In fact, don't interact with them because it's a waste of time. They won't attack you anyway. So get the med stem, get the plasma incinerator, assemble up here with your teammates, and then kick this down. And then you will see in very short order, as we descend some ramps, all of these incapacitated Marines down here. So as I say, well, first of all, restock on ammo, and then just run all the way towards the very end. And then the Hellbrute is going to attack you very ferociously at first. Now, bear in mind that he does 2 attacks at first. So watch what he does when we get to him. Okay, 1 attack, and then back off again because he's going to do the attack again. Okay, so the best thing to do on this boss, because he shoots projectiles, you want to get behind pieces of cover that are indestructible. And again, always avail yourself of, because he's already spawned lackeys, as you can see. Use the lackeys to restore your shields. You know, maybe hit them once or twice, goad them into using their perfect parry signal. But he does fire volleys of plasma, And if you can get behind the really thick, indestructible pieces of cover, you're completely safe. So it works out really good in that respect. And this was a really clean fight, I thought. It wasn't the best fight ever by any stretch of the imagination. It could have gone a whole hell of a lot better. But for me, if I don't fall in combat, I consider that, a success, more of a success than usual. But did you see what happened there? I bullet time dodged his first attack, but I didn't realize he had a follow-up attack there. So I went in for my gun strike, only to get hit by his second strike because the gun strike seemingly didn't have iframes for his attack that he did that second time. So here I'm sticking with the crack grenades, and here he's going to fire his volleys. So like I said, stand behind something like this; they will not hit you. And we're looking good. We've got 2 heals. We've got a revive if we need it, but I'm not gonna use it. And you've got to get out of the way of his AOEs. Sometimes these AOEs can stretch on for a long way, so be real careful about that. And anytime he teleports over to you, be very careful to dodge properly. If you're not comfortable with a bullet time dodge, just dodge succinctly. But with these bullet time dodges, the game doesn't want you to overdo it and spam it. They want you to do one dash towards the enemy, just like I did there. Just don't double dash because the game thinks you're spamming the dodge, and you're penalized for spamming dodges in this game. You're not penalized for precise one dodge attacks. And sometimes your teammates can fall in combat, like I think happened here. But if you've got another teammate that's still around, he will be able to pick up the fallen comrade. Note any cans of notice any cans that can be exploded that are next to this guy. The first shot takes a little bit of a time to come out. When he first shoots his first plasma, it takes a little bit of time, so be patient. But you don't really need to be patient as long. Oh, this was impatience at it. This was pure greed. I went for a med kit that I didn't even need, and I paid the price for that because it ended up in me potentially needing to use a med kit and wasting, wasting progress and having a poorer fight just because of greed, essentially. Because I didn't need that. I didn't need that heal kit. I could have disregarded it and finished him off in a more succinct fashion. Okay, here he comes again. He struck us, it appears, but he's in execution status. And then that is the conclusion of Operation 5. I will see you in Operation 6. It will be the final operation. And when I see you there, I expect you to be taking care. And you can expect the same of me. Please take care.